Welcome, Dolphins fans, haters, and everyone in between to your favorite show discussing the greatest franchise in sports, the Miami Dolphins. This is the PhinsPod. My name is Moose, your host, and although the Fins took an L on the scoreboard for preseason week 1, falling to the Chicago Bears 20-13, it's important to remember what that game was. No game planning, having limited reps for the starting units, as well as some rust to generally shake off before kickoff next month. These exhibition friendlies provide us a glimpse of what's to come. It's not the end-all be-all, but that does not mean that we're not going to talk about the starting units, what we saw from our guys, the good, the bad, and the ugly, as many would say, as well as the top 3 performers on the offensive and defensive sides of the ball. It is wonderful to have football back. Let's dive in.
I thought I did all right. There are a lot of things that we need to clean up offensively, with our communication, more so our execution with our plays that we're given. First time coming out, in a real game-like situation, environment. I thought it was pretty good for the first time.
What should you have done different on the interception?
Probably not throwing it.
I know most of you understand that Miami losing to the Chicago Bears in the preseason doesn't mean anything at all in the long run. However, there might be some of you upset and thinking to yourselves, Moose, hey, this is a really bad sign. Losing to the Bears? Tua threw a horrible pick? But consider this for a moment. The Baltimore Ravens have not lost a preseason game since 2015. That's 18 straight dubs in August, including the one they got Saturday night against the Saints, who don't look so hot, by the way. So, with 18 straight wins in the preseason, what has that done for Harbaugh and the Ravens? Zilch. Other teams, having lost multiple preseason games in that span, have gone on to win the Super Bowl time and time again. And you might be thinking, Moose, the Ravens are actually a pretty good team, and they've been playoff contenders for a few seasons now, better than the Dolphins, so preseason could still mean something, right? Fair. But then explain to me the meaning of the Browns going 4-0 in the 2017 preseason to then shit their pants on their way to an 0-16 campaign. I'm telling you, wins and losses in the preseason means nothing. So with that cleared up, let's talk about how the Dolphins actually looked, starting with the offense. I liked a lot of what I saw Saturday afternoon, specifically the way that this offense is built, Tua's progression in year 2, actually showing itself in live action and not in a bunch of practice highlights, and also the play calling compared to last year. Yes, it's a small sample size, and look, I hold the right to develop an opinion on how this offensive unit grows and develops as the season goes along. I can evolve and change my mind if things change, as we all can. But again, this is a podcast, and speculation and projection is the name of the game. So look, I'm going to project a little here. Tua Tagovailoa is going to have a damn good season. Starting with the play calling, it is apparent that the design of Miami's attack is actually built for Tua. Last year, there was so much predictability when Tua entered the game, and even in this vanilla game plan we saw in Chicago, there were big plays. In terms of structure, it felt as if Miami's going to run a lot out of the shotgun with one tight end, a tailback, and 3 receivers, sometimes subbing out one of those slot receivers with another tight end if they want to have a mismatch. But again, we saw this formation, 1 tight end, tailback, 3 receivers, in the shotgun the entire first drive, which is generally kind of your base offense. So expect a lot of that. Miami's not going to be a play-action, pass-heavy team. I think it really looks like they want to win pre-snap. And other teams who have those quote-unquote identities, they tend to try to force their scheme onto opposing defenses, right? Think about the Titans with their run-heavy offense, or the Chiefs with their spread-it-out, pass-happy attack with Pat Mahomes. But Miami doesn't want to be stuck with one label. Flores wants his teams to be multiple, both on the defensive side and the offensive. That means he wants to win by attacking your weaknesses and making smart, sound decisions with the football. And thankfully, if Tua succeeds with the Dolphins, that's going to be his defining trait. Tua walks up to the line. He's got 3 receivers, allowing him to see the coverage. He's got an extra blocker on the line at tight end, as well as a running back for protection, but it also lets him see whether a run is going to work or not. He gets to the line, simple math, and count. You got more blockers than they have defenders? Make sure you switch it to the run play or keep the run play. Or if there's a mismatch you want to take advantage of in the running game, hand that sucker off and win the old-fashioned way. But if not, you don't like the look, you want to stick, you like the coverage you're getting, and you want to stick with your pass play, whatever. Tua can assess that before the snap. And again, based on what the defense is running, man, zone, they're blitzing a corner, he's got to do a hot route, whatever. he has to go through his progressions and then make the right throw. And the Miami Dolphins are showing us that they're not trying to hide him anymore. They're relying on him to actually run this thing. And look, we're going to see other combinations of personnel. We saw it in the game as well. Certain situations, called for certain things, whether it be goal line, third and short, honestly, we saw oftentimes, two tight end sets when they did want to run, which again signals their run. They don't really pass out of that set a lot. So you're hoping that that's just the vanilla offense we're seeing and that they do diversify because, again, predictability is not good for an offense. But in general, I think Miami wants to set up their weapons for success. And the way that happens is with Tagovailoa dicing up defenses. And we saw that. Say what you want about that interception. Bad decision. Yup. Late. Absolutely. But don't tell me he wasn't aggressive out there. Confident in his arm and his decisions. That's the step that we wanted to see in year 2. I mean, we saw the accuracy on display time and time again. He did not throw one inaccurate ball. I mean, damn, even the pick that had Shaheen, the one that Shaheen didn't attack hard enough, the defender's hands were on it, but so were Shaheen's. He was on the money all day. That third down conversion to Mike Gesicki in one of those drives, that throw was in the only place it could have been to convert. Go back and watch it. He threw an awesome deep out to Matt Collins as well, which unfortunately got called back for holding, but it was still a dime. And his deep floater to Gesicki was a thing of beauty. And that chemistry is developing very nicely. And I know Miami Dolphins fans across the country, when Gesicki hauled that deep pass in, lost their minds. I mean, I know I did. And then, of course, the other drop from Shaheen on the first drive on the 2nd and 8 play was entirely on the former Bear. And hey, look, I guess that's why they let Shaheen go, the Bears. I'm telling you guys, he just looks how a tight end is supposed to look. He's not reliable, not physically in terms of his health, nor as a playmaker. Look, he's not a rookie anymore. We know what he is. Brick hands and really not that great after the catch. That's why Hunter Long was brought in. They wanted to upgrade the room. I mean, damn, play Durham Smythe over him, honestly. And the pass that we're talking about, that 2nd and 8 out route to Shaheen, it's exactly where it needed to be. Hit him in the hands. The defender did not jar it loose or anything. Shaheen just couldn't haul it in. But again, in terms of what that means for Tua, he looks significantly better. More of what we thought we could get when we drafted him last year. And of course, other than the pick, which we're going to get to, the only other poor throw that he made was also on that first drive. He threw the pass away on 3rd down, and some could say it was a safe decision, protect the ball. It's only preseason, right? I feel like he kind of rushed it. He had room to slide and continue looking downfield. He could have moved right. There was a lot of room. If you go back and look, he seemed to have kind of panicked when he didn't get what he wanted. And rather than extending the play, he just kind of threw it away and cut his losses. But look, I again hope that's just a preseason thing and we don't see him throw passes away prematurely once we get into the thick of it. And again, he can leak out of the pocket. He's good on the run. I want him to get there when he can. Other than to his precise passing ability against the Bears being on full display, because again, precision is on point. He has zip now. It's just about knowing where to go pre-snap and based on what the coverage is post-snap, making the right read. But again, we saw mobility. The one play I'm referring to specifically, I feel like you guys probably remember it, is when he got pressure right up the gut. He was able to sidestep the sack, move up, finding an open Malcolm Brown. And look, he didn't look uncomfortable at all, like he looked last season at times when he'd roll out. It just looked a little awkward. Now, he seems fluid and thick in the lower body. It looks good, guys. I'm being honest. It looks good. And overall, from a macroscopic lens, I love what Tua did in game 1. And I hope to see jumps and better decisions in the red zone next week, as well as in the final preseason game as we gear up for New England. But come on, guys. When have we had a quarterback who looked this promising? When? Please let me know. I mean, obviously, if you're like 60, yeah, you can tell me Dan Marino, but I'm talking about in the last 20 years. What Tua did was promising. Look, he's not looking like an MVP candidate, but he's definitely looking improved. Now, getting to the negative, the interception. That was the one bad decision that he made. The Dolphins were driving, right? They barely converted that 4th down, but they had a 1st and 10 in the red zone, and given time, Tua had plenty. He spotted Shaheen late, and he gave the defender just enough time to get there and make a stellar play on the ball. Excuse me, but it was preventable. Tua threw it late. It was accurate. I mean, if the safety didn't come over, if we Photoshop him out of the play, The ball was on a rope and right in his hands. And to be fair to him, maybe Tua was just being aggressive considering the stakes are so low in the preseason. See if you can make that throw. And next time, if he identifies the window sooner, then yeah, he can make that throw. Tua finished the game going 8 for 11, 99 yards, and an interception. He did average, but this is probably my favorite stat, and I think points a lot to what we've been talking about. He averaged 10 yards per pass attempt, a significant jump from that 6.3 yard per attempt last year. So there's definitely a lot to build off of. But listen, we're absolutely going to be talking much more about the offense, the alignments, what we saw, and what they could mean going forward. Potential risers and fallers in the depth chart. I think we're going to see that next week, and of course more in the coming days. So be sure to subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, or follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts if you're listening there. What did you think of Tua's overall performance? Are you a bit worried? And if so, honestly, let me know why. I'm curious. If you feel like I do, then you're excited for what's to come. But again, if you are worried, I am curious as to why and what specific plays really dragged your concern out, if not the interception. I know that was honestly what everyone's harping on, but other than that, what was it that you saw which made you worried? But if you were a fan of Tua's performance, let us know your favorite throw. Like I said earlier, mine was that third down conversion to Gesicki. Gesicki ran that out on 3rd and 6. It was exactly 6 yards, and Tua put it on the money, only where Gesicki could get it. That chemistry, like I said earlier, that needs to continue to build, and if so, expect a lot of touchdowns to Gesicki. He needs to be utilized in the red zone. Now, speaking of Gesicki, moving on to the receiving core, let's first talk about where guys currently stand. And look, if Miami's going to play with a lot of 3 receiver sets, it means that your top 4 or 5 guys are going to see the most of the action. So right now, that's Will Fuller, and then, of course, Devontae Parker when they come back healthy, Albert Wilson, and Jalen Waddle. Those are going to be the main guys utilized when everyone's healthy. But after that, that's where things get interesting. And that's who we saw was 6th and 7th string right now, because they were playing the 3rd and 4th string today. Jakeem Grant and, shockingly, Mac Hollins. The most impressive receiver to me was actually Mac Hollins. I know, I have pooped on the guy in previous episodes, but damn, I could honestly be proven wrong, and I do not mind. He's got great timing with Tua. That offseason work is definitely paying dividends. We saw it on that deep out, that 15-yard third down conversion over the middle, another deep accurate pass from Tua, mind you, as well as that slant that in the red zone that got Miami to the goal line on their second drive. Obviously, you do want the top guys, Fuller and Vontae, out there. Fuller is more complete than Waddle right now at this point, which is a good thing because Waddle's so young and developing, and Parker is much better than Mac Hollins. I was disappointed not being able to see Albert Wilson, but then again, the fact that the offense still had some really good moments without those top 3 guys is not a bad thing. Jalen Waddle looked hot in the Dolphins uniform, and he was moving well out there. Unfortunately, he did not get a catch or a target, so we still have to hold our judgment on how he looks as a receiver. He was used in a unique way when compared to the other guys, but that just might be the slot position. Most likely Albert Wilson would be running those routes as well, but we saw him go in motion multiple times. He would start out in the slot, Tua motions him in, he jogs back behind the tight end, and then flips his hips, jogs back out to the slot, and the snap is done. And the motion not only helps Tua see if the defense is in man or zone, if the guy's following him or if he's staying pat, it allows Tua to determine what the defense is in if they're not disguising it well. But it also gives Waddle a little bit of a head start. Unlike the cornerback, right, who starts by running backwards, so already at a disadvantage, Waddle's going to have designs in the offense which allow him to get in motion and get some momentum going to explode off the line, and create initial separation. I'm excited to see, how he progresses throughout this preseason, as well as how this offense evolves with him as he gets better. But we have nothing to judge as of yet, and that's okay. Now look, Waddle did show out on his 1 punt return. That was the best play he had, and he looked fast. He read the field well, and he switched directions at the perfect time, hitting a seam on the left sideline for a 20-yard return. Look, as electric as he is, I do not want to see him back there returning punts. As fun as he is and as great as he is at it, unless we're late in the game and we need to make a play, do not return punts with Waddle. It is too risky in terms of injury, and I want to see him develop as a receiver. And look, there could be a guy in line for that job anyway. The other receiving option we talked about, someone who just will not go away, Jakeem Grant. And Flores had some words of support for Jakeem after the game. His spot in the depth chart and the amount of looks that he's getting is making me more and more convinced that he's going to end up on this roster. And we're going to talk more about guys like Isaiah Ford, Kirk Merritt, Lynn Bowden later this week as we dive into the offense, so be sure to stick around. But again, those guys haven't really been given the same number of chances as Grant, so it's surprising that he keeps getting those chances. He must be balling out in practice. I don't get it. I feel like Bowden's better. I don't know why he wasn't in there, but hey, the coaches know best. Regardless, Grant was not targeted either by Tua at all, and he didn't really make much of an impact on the offensive front, but he was explosive on his returns, which, again, we know he is really good at the return game, other than, of course, that one punt where he lost 5 yards. The tight end spot, it does look really solid overall, with Mike Gesicki picking up right where he left off. I mean, seriously, that play, that 50-yard bomb, that was the exact same thing as his catch from Fitzpatrick last season in San Francisco. So let's hope for another big year from 88. I was also really impressed with Durham Smythe. Look, I know he has his shortcomings, but he's really improved as a blocker, and he has excellent technique. It's just strength that's his problem. But when he gets his technique right, he can seal the edge. He opened up a bunch of holes for the run game. A lot of those big runs, if you watch, it was Durham Smythe blocking, not Adam Shaheen, and of course not Mike Gesicki. But look, he also made a nice catch in the game as well, and Durham Smythe has proven he's got reliable hands, sure hands. So, I think Durham Smythe's going to move up in the depth chart next week. I think we're going to see him starting with Gesicki, but again, we're going to get more into that as the week progresses. Speaking of Adam Shaheen, he saw a lot of reps with the starting unit, and look, he has the physical tools like we talked about. For his size, he's a big man, fluid, strong, and pretty decent as a blocker, but damn, I need more. He just doesn't attack the ball. He allows smaller DBs to outmuscle him for catches, and he's not as good of a blocker as you would want for his size. Based on, if we're talking like size to blocking ability ratio, Durham's got him beat. If they switched bodies and kept their same abilities, Durham would be a much better tight end. But like I said, Shaheen's solid overall, right? But you want to see growth from him, as well as this unit overall. If we want this unit to improve, we need all three of them to play at a high level. We know Gesicki can do it, but we need Smythe and, of course, Shaheen to do it. And, of course, the Hunter Long pick shows that they wanted to improve the room. Of course, we'll see the status of his injury. We do not know, but I highly doubt he'll be ready early in the season. Moving to the offensive line, this is where things were just flat out bad. And when I said the good, the bad, and the ugly, this was the ugly. By far the worst performing unit on the team. Austin Jackson got beat far too often. And when his fundamentals are right, he can block well. He can shut guys down. But his inexperience and lack of strength, he is 21, so he's still getting into his body. But look, I can't wait. We can't wait 3-4 years for him to be what he eventually can be. I mean, we hope that he can play at a competent level now and keep him for when he hits his prime. But if he can't get it done, it's going to be a problem. His inexperience, and again, him getting beat physically just from defensive ends, out-muscling him around the edge, that showed itself time and time again in this game. He needs to get better over this next month, learn from the film, develop, and let's hope that a lot of those issues were mental and not physical, because if they're physical, there's not much that you can do to change that, because what we saw was worrisome. Solomon Kinley at left guard looked decent. He was one of the better performers, which isn't saying much, but he wasn't beat that often and seemingly picked up generally where he left off last season, which is a good sign because, again, he was third team at the start of camp, but that could have just been maybe he came in out of shape. Maybe they were sending a message. I don't know what it was, but Solomon Kinley looked the same. At center, Michael Dieter was actually intriguing to me. His snaps were honestly, they were pretty decent. He was never really an issue. And that's the bare minimum, of course, you can expect, but he held his own against Akeem Hicks, who is one of the better interior D linemen in the game. And compared to when we saw Dieter play in 2019, he is bigger. He looks stronger, and he's playing stronger, and seemingly more violent at the point of attack and confident when punching. And look, it doesn't always mean it works. On the goal line, he had a cut block, which failed miserably, which allowed the defender to help plug up the hole. But again, that wasn't just his fault. That was the entire left side of the line, which failed miserably on that third and goal. But he did seem, Dieter, to be on the ground more than you would like your center to be. But the good news, he's not a liability. He's pretty much the same as Ted Karras, but potentially with a higher ceiling, considering his size and his age. He's still a lot younger, and he's still developing. The fact that he's gotten better each year is a good sign. So he might get better and better the more reps he gets, and he's already proven to be, competent at the center position. At right guard, Robert Hunt, he was the top performer. He had his man beat almost every single time, and honestly, his showing put me at ease, at least for the right guard spot. I mean, he's meant to be a guard. The transition was definitely the right call. He's a mauler. Like that's what we saw last year when he played right tackle. When they ran to the right, that's where they got their yardage. But of course, his issue is in pass pro. By moving him inside, it's definitely a good move because it allows him to work in smaller spaces against, honestly, stronger guys, but not as great athletes. And he is right there in terms of strength. So it is definitely a great spot for him at right guard. And Miami needs to run behind that right side more often. Now, the worst performer of the day, in my opinion, some would say Austin Jackson. But if you watch, Jesse Davis had some bad plays. He had some really bad plays. He's still inconsistent in his pass protection, and I'm sorry, he is not athletic enough to actually play tackle. When the Dolphins ran to the left, right, time and time again, the right tackle needs to wall off that defensive end so they can't crash in and blow up the play that's going to the left. But again, he couldn't do it. He could not wall off the D lineman in front of him, allowing the defensive end to shoot inside and penetrate when they should have no business being that far up in the backfield so soon. So I pray to the football gods that Liam Eichenberg is actually our savior, but I hope the rookie can come in and provide some steadiness, but maybe he could win the right tackle job, improving over time and helping that line develop rather than being inconsistent like Jesse Davis, who honestly would be great as a utility lineman, not a starter. But to be fair, asking a rookie, Liam Eichenberg, to help this line be secure is not fair. And it's also not a good look for Chris Grier. Building an offensive line has been his Achilles heel. It's the only thing I can't say he's proven to be good at. He's a good trader. He's proven that he can draft and develop guys on the defensive side. He knows the type of guys Flores wants. But when it comes to building an offensive line, something that's kind of just like you either have it or you don't, that's his number one issue. And the fact that we aren't good on the line after investing so much time and money into it over the last few years, it's a problem, as well as draft capital. It's a problem, and you hope that this is going to be something that's fixed. Because if it's not, we're going to be harping on it all season long, and it's something we've been harping on for well over a decade now. And that bad offensive line play feeds directly into the running game. And look, Malcolm Brown came out as a lead back, which surprised me, and I know probably surprised a lot of you, but he showed some good things. He ran hard and definitely falls forward as a runner, which is what you need in certain situations. But the most impressive guys were still Myles Gaskin and Savon Ahmed. I expect them to get the bulk of the rushing yards and receptions out of the backfield this season, so be sure to draft them when they're falling, because your friends who aren't Dolphins fans are like, oh, the Dolphins suck. Scoop up Savon Ahmed and Myles Gaskin when you can. So my top three performers on the offensive side of the ball. Number one, Robert Hunt. He is the sliver of hope on the offensive line. Number two, Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, he would be number one if he didn't throw that pick, but I still really, really liked what I saw. And number three, Mac Hollins. I know, I am just as surprised as you. The three guys who disappointed the most on the offensive side. Number one, Jesse Davis. Again, he got beat way too often in the run game. As a vet, too, you got higher standards. So based on his play, as considering how long he's been in the league, he looked like Austin Jackson out there. And Austin Jackson's like 8 years his junior. So it's not good enough for Jesse Davis. Speaking of the second worst performer, Austin Jackson. No need to get more into it. We know what the problems are. And number three, Adam Shaheen. He needs to perform at a higher level over the next two games, or honestly, he could expect to drop down the depth chart. Like I said, I do think Durham Smythe's going to work his way up, but if Shaheen has another good week in practice, looks good in Falcons joint practices, maybe he'll get another shot to redeem himself. But look, we're going to have a whole episode dedicated to the starting offense and the packages and overall depth this week, but initial impressions, pretty good. Moving on to the defense, I loved what I saw, and I know a lot of you guys are right there with me. We're going to start with the run defense, which looked much, much better. Guys are holding their own, and linebackers are actually being near the ball, which is what you want them to do against the run. And look, there is that one play from former Dolphins Damian Williams out on the outside, which was not a great look, but other than that, Miami was really stout. On the line, Christian Wilkins looked much improved. He batted down a ball and was getting around guys at a much higher rate than before. And as we've talked about, his chase down ability, once he gets into the backfield, is top rate for a defensive tackle. And now that he's developed a larger repertoire of moves and an ability to get by guards and centers and offensive tackles, we should see a jump. And that should prove to be beneficial for this defense. Because, again, he's the one that we're like, all right, look, he's kind of the third guy right now. Raekwon Davis is number one. Zach Sealer seems to be passing him. But if Christian Wilkins is going to take that jump, it's going to help this defense immensely. And it was a good start for him. Now, speaking of the pass rush overall as a defense, it wasn't there. In terms of organic pressure, we didn't see much from Andrew Van Ginkel as well as Brennan Scarlett, who did start in place of Jalen Phillips. But look, Miami isn't collapsing the pocket from the outside much at all. To be fair, they do create their pressure using blitzes and disguising their coverages, forcing the quarterback to hold on to the ball because he's confused. Justin Herbert and Flores and Boyer are keeping it close to the vest right now in terms of their amoeba fronts and all-out blitz packages. That's going to be unleashed on whichever poor soul suits up at quarterback for the Pats in week 1. But like the mantra has been in this episode, we still want to see improvement, right? By far, the most impressive part of the entire day, the pass defense. Without Xavier Howard and Byron Jones, mind you, the coverage looked just as locked down, starting with Nick Needham. He is playing at a really high level right now, and we saw him make a few plays on the ball during the game, and he was great both in the nickel and on the boundary. You'll love to see that development, as we've discussed before. Justin Coleman also looked really good. He is definitely a physical corner, and he came up to make a few big hits, which was great to see. The fact that those two are your third and fourth string corners, that's damn good. Eric Rowe also picked up right where he left off. He, too, made a great play on a pass breakup on third down. And even Noah Igbenogany made a play on the ball. And it wasn't against the starters, but seeing him make a play and actually flash a little bit is exactly what the preseason is for. And we know physically he's there. It's just about getting the reps and getting there mentally. Let him develop, learn from your mistakes in the game without those true consequences of Stephon Diggs going over you for 40 yards. But even after these games, if he does struggle, then we can talk, right? But he has by no means shown that he's a bad player on the field in Chicago. He looked pretty good. He looked competent, better than what the reports were coming out of camp. And going back to safety, the fact that I didn't even notice Javon Holland probably is a good thing. It means he didn't mess up and he did his job. There were no big plays over the top. He didn't make any mistakes. He didn't mess up. There weren't any blown coverages when he was in there. You know, that horrible touchdown they allowed to Justin Fields later in the game, that's all backups. And we'll get into the backups in later episodes and sort of talk about the depth. But again, speaking of Javon Holland, the way he performed is all you can ask for from a rookie in their first NFL action. And look, the fact that the defense was as great as it was shouldn't be surprising. Look, unlike the offense, which is in year 2 with Tua and year 1 of this new scheme, the Dolphins' defensive approach has been in place for 3 straight off seasons now. You got Flores and Boyer, who have not changed their identity since they've been in New England, and now they've come and implemented that defense in Miami, and they have just found better pieces to fit that scheme over time and have built an understanding of their personnel and who does what well. Not to mention that personnel has gotten an understanding of the defense. Think about it. A defense which relies mainly on the secondary has Xavier Howard, 3 years in the system. Byron Jones entering his second year in the system, but again, a really good player. Justin Coleman played in the system in New England, and then when he went to Detroit under Matt Patricia, so he has experience. And then you got guys like Jason McCourty, who's also spent well over 3 years in the scheme, and Nick Needham, also entering year 3. I mean, this secondary knows the defense. They know their assignments, their expectations, and they are executing. We saw that. So in terms of top performers for the starting unit on the defensive side, number 1, Nick Needham. He was all over his guys and is continuing to impress and make throws tough on opposing quarterbacks. He's gotten better and better each year. Definitely excited to see where that ceiling is. Number 2, Christian Wilkins. He was penetrating often in the run game, and he showed his athleticism with that tip to shut down that pass attempt. He looked good. And number 3, Justin Coleman. We talked about him earlier. He was not only solid in coverage, but he came up and those hits were, you heard him, they were good. He is a great tackler, and that's great to see out of the secondary. The bottom 3 performers, and again, compared to the offensive 3 here, these guys were actually still good. The guys who struggled on offense really struggled. The starting defensive guys who struggled, I'm kind of reaching. And finding these 3 disappointments was hard. But again, that's what they are. It was a little disappointing. They weren't bad. It's just you want to see a little bit more. Starting at number 1, Jerome Baker. Again, he wasn't bad, but you just want to see more out of him. He got beat in zone coverage multiple times over the middle, and he gave up chunks in the passing game. He was not effective when he did manage to blitz, but that's most likely due to Miami not being very creative in those blitz packages and just being vanilla. But still, I would have liked to see him be a little more impactful in this game. Again, not bad by any means, but still want more from 5-5. Number 2, Raekwon Davis. Similar to Jerome, was not bad, but the second-year defensive tackle did get blown back a few times. If you look at Chicago's positive runs early in the game, when they did get those 4 or 5-yard runs, Raekwon was getting shoved. I mean, he was double-teamed, but you don't want to be moved. You just want to stay in your place. And he was sometimes 5 yards back. So I do think he's going to ramp it up. You know, that was the issue coming out of college, you know, was the mental. He doesn't always put in the effort. If it's preseason, he knows he's got the spot. Maybe he's not trying so hard. You don't love to see that, but we hope that that ramps up into another gear for the regular season. But again, we do want to see his reps next week and improvement. And number 3, lastly, Andrew Van Ginkel. He was good in run defense, as he always is, shedding blockers and getting a hold of the runner, setting the edge. I'm not worried about that, but Kinky Ginky was nowhere to be seen off the edge when he was rushing the passer. I do hope he's saving some of those moves and he doesn't want to show them on film, because all I did see was just bull rush after bull rush after bull rush and honestly poorly timed spin moves. So he needs to be a presence on the defensive end side and cause pressure off the edge in order for this defense to be top 3, which they absolutely have the potential to be. Like I said, we're definitely going to have a deeper dive into the defense as well this week, so be sure to come back to the PhinsPod. And lastly, we're going to touch on the specialists. Not much to touch on here, but Jason Sanders, still a stud, hitting both his field goal attempts, and newly added Michael Pilardi. As advertised, he had a great average of 53 yards per punt on 5 attempts. That's damn good. Way better than Matt Hawk, and even better than his average, his long, 68 yards. 68. Wild. So look, the Dolphins are 0-1 in the preseason. That stings. Losing to the Bears stings. Seeing Justin Fields highlights against our third-teamers all week. We're going to see it on ESPN. We're going to see it on Get Up. You're going to hear it on The Herd. You're going to hear that interception over and over again talked about. You're going to see the interception over and over again on The Herd. It's going to be frustrating, but keep your head. If the team doesn't show signs of regression, then based on history, that means they're going to be better. Flores is going to improve them. Not only was there no regression in Chicago, but honestly, each unit looked better than last year, and it wasn't even the starting squad completely. There were missing pieces. So do they look like a Super Bowl contender yet? No. Not with the injuries at receiver, inconsistency on that offensive line, and of course, an unknown in the run defense. We need to see that stay stout week in and week out. But if those questions get answered, just those 3, by early September, then watch out. I think we're coming. I really, really do. What do you guys think? After week 1 of the preseason, your expectations go up for the season, go down, you still don't know what to feel. Leave a comment below or tweet at us at PhinsPod.
Plenty of time for Tagovailoa, lofting it up there, and it's caught by Mike Gesicki. The excellent tight end sheds a tackle, and finally Houston Carson runs him out of bounds. Tagovailoa on 3rd down. Oh, man, into a tight window. The catch is made by Hollins again. Tagovailoa evades the pressure, showing off that excellent footwork, and he finds Malcolm Brown.
That's going to do it for us here today. Thank you guys so much for listening to the show. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you again to Timothy Ritchie, member of the pod and supporter of the show over on Patreon. Check that out. Links in the description, or head to patreon.com/PhinsPod. Thank you all so much for the continued support, and please remember to like the video if you enjoyed the show, subscribe just so you never miss a chance to chat about your Miami Dolphins. Remember that the show is available on all platforms, Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts, and of course here on YouTube. Continue the conversation with us over on Twitter and Instagram at PhinsPod. Follow us over there. We are growing on Twitter, so if you want to see some raw, unfiltered thoughts, be sure to follow. I hope you all have an amazing day, and until next time, stay safe. Love y'all.